Hello and welcome, and once more I have been hit by YouTube. This is a video entitled Curt von Gottberg and the War Against the Partisans in Belarus. This video was uploaded more than 1 year ago, so YouTube had plenty of time to decide if they liked it or they didn't like it. And this morning I put it up for publication in 4 days' time, and immediately, within seconds, this came up here. Limited ad earnings. What does that mean? It means that not only don't I get any money from it, and if I don't get any money from it, YouTube doesn't get any money from it either. That means to say that if you are subscribed and you've hit the bell, you will not be informed about it. Indeed, the only way to find out once this is a video is to go to the channel page. There we go. You press this thing here, the looking glass, and Control V. You write Curt von Gottberg, and then let's see what turns up, and there you have the two videos which Curt von Gottberg is actually mentioned. So Oscar de la Wanger, Part 2, Murder in the USSR. He was doing a similar role to what Curt von Gottberg was doing in Belarus at this time. Now, I will read to you what is actually written here, because this, they say, that it doesn't meet their advertiser-friendly content guidelines. But here, as you can see in my thing, there is, at the bottom down here, there's a link. There's a link for the staff at YouTube to find their own community guidelines right next to them, the advertiser-friendly guidelines as well. There's no reason for them not to be able to find them. I've put it in the description so that they can find it, because they don't know their own community guidelines. What I'm going to do now is I'll read this to you, and you can sort of watch it along with me, and then I'm going to show you the video without the original text, and I'll tell you something about the life of Curt von Gottberg. So, what I've written here in the description: Curt von Gottberg was one of the commanders in the war against the partisans in what is today Belarus. He was particularly noted for his brutality. Curt von Gottberg was one of the most ruthless SS commanders involved in the German occupation of Belarus during the Second World War. Appointed higher SS and police leaders, HSSPF, for Central Russia and later Belarus, he directed so-called anti-partisan operations that resulted in the systematic destruction of hundreds of villages and the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians. While officially presented as security operations against Soviet partisans, these campaigns frequently targeted unarmed men, women and children. Perhaps I shouldn't have said frequently, I should have written nearly always. This channel, that's to say my channel, examines Curt von Gottberg's rise through the SS, his appointment in occupied Belarus following the death of Wilhelm Kuba, and his central role in implementing the brutal anti-partisan strategy. It explains how German security forces, Waffen-SS units, police battalions and locally recruited auxiliaries carried out large-scale pacification operations that combined military action with mass murder. The channel also explores major operations such as Operation Cottbus, Operation Hermann, and other sweeps across the forests and marshes of Belarus. These operations involved the burning of entire villages, the deportation of civilians for forced labor, the seizure of livestock and food, and the murder of anyone suspected of supporting the resistance. Modern historical research has demonstrated that the overwhelming majority of those killed during these operations were civilians rather than armed partisans. Perhaps I ought to have written there, ancient mathematical research has also demonstrated, because the amount of weapons was next to nothing compared to the amount of people who were murdered. Particular attention is given to the infamous destruction of villages such as Hatyn, which became one of the best-known symbols of Nazi occupation in Belarus, the wider policy of collective punishment, and the deliberate devastation of rural communities is placed within the context of Nazi Germany's occupational policies on the Eastern Front. Now, I'll point out as well that Hatyn is not the same as Katyn, where the Soviets murdered the Polish army officers and other intelligentsia. They're two separate places. The video also examines von Gottberg's relationship with Erich von der Bach-Zelewski, Heinrich Himmler, and other senior SS leaders responsible for anti-partisan warfare. It explains how ideological warfare against so-called bandits became a cover for crimes against humanity and formed part of the broader Nazi policy of racial extermination and occupation in Eastern Europe. Finally, the channel follows Curt von Gottberg's final months as the Red Army advanced into Belarus's appointment as acting head of the SS and police in the collapsing Reichskommissariat Ostland, and his death in 1945 after being captured by British forces. Then there's a suggestion you might want to subscribe. And there we have also some names. You put these names in because they're sort of names of things you mentioned in the text. But then notice we've got this for whoever does the alleged manual control at YouTube. So there's absolutely no excuse for YouTube not. Why has this been censored? There is no reason for it whatsoever. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the video of this. I'm going to show you this one in glorious big screen, and I'm going to put it up the same length as the text I'm now about to tell you, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about the life of Curt von Gottberg, and you might find that interesting. Bear in mind that when I do this, I show you the original film. The film and the text aren't going to work together, and the film is usually speeded up, but in this case I'll probably rabbit on for longer, so it's going to be slowed down. So here's something about von Gottberg. So Curt von Gottberg was born on the 11th of February 1896, and if you were thinking of being born then, I could suggest you don't do it. It's not a good idea, because that's going to means to say that by the time the First World War starts, you're going to be 18 years old, and that's not a good idea. Now, his family, the von Gottbergs, they've got their own crest, and they come originally from the Brandenburg area of what is today Germany, but then they sort of moved in an easterly direction, and the family itself was very, very wealthy, a very large estate they held in East Prussia. His own father, Walther von Gottberg, was born 1870, died in 1945. So he died. So at the age of 75, he would have known of the loss of his estates and, of course, of entire East Prussia. I don't know how he died, but of course it's possible that he died in fleeing from East Germany, East Prussia, I should say. So von Gottberg, he volunteered for the First World War, 2nd of August 1914. So he did it almost immediately. Notice he did it much quicker than Hitler did. Although he stayed in the army until the very end of the war, in 1917 he was declared as sort of invalided. He could have been invalided out because he had numerous wounds, but he stayed in. He was awarded the 1st and 2nd class Iron Cross, and he stayed in the army as a first lieutenant until April 1920. How come he wasn't promoted any further? Well, that's a good question, and I don't have an answer for that for you. He married one of his relatives, a lady called Leonie von Gottberg, von Groß-Klitten, and he had 3 children with her, 3 daughters, Victoria, Eric, and Elizabeth. They got divorced in 1928, and then he married Charlotte Kniep, and he had 4 sons with her. It's quite ironic. For 3 daughters with the first wife, and then he had 4 sons with the next one: Lorenz, Hans Wittek, Walther, and Rasmus. And Rasmus became quite famous as a dramaturge, writer on the Côte d'Azur. He died around 2010, if memory serves me correctly, and I think he got something at the Cannes Film Festival, although that's a bit outside the scope of this video. So to go back to Gottberg, so he left the army, then he joined the Erhard Marine Brigade, and there were lots of other people doing the same. Now, this leads me to assume that he didn't leave the army voluntarily, that he was demobilized. And the Erhard Marine Brigade also, Freikorps, pretty violent. They were involved in the Kapp Putsch. I don't know if he was involved in that, but he certainly was involved in the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich in 1923. So after the Nazi Party was declared illegal and probably seeing everything in tatters around, he went back to East Prussia. He worked on the family farm, and he studied agriculture. Now, in 1931, he joined the SA, and he joined the Nazi Party on the 1st of February 1932. And in September 32, he transferred to the SS. Now, by this time, in 1932, of course, Hitler was very strong in the Reichstag. This is his strongest moment after the first elections in 1932. The Nazi Party became the biggest party. Now, it was, of course, wealthy landowners like the von Gottberg family, wealthy landowners from East Prussia's probably not right, but east of the Elbe, who allowed Hitler to come to power. They were the ones who made sure that he was put in as Chancellor. And this would have been great news for Curt. Not only does it mean that he'd have got more subsidies for his father's farm, his father got more subsidies, it also meant that he was sort of rapidly promoted. So he made his way up in the SS. On the 20th of March 1934, he was promoted to Obersturmbannführer, as was Ludolf Hermann von Alvensleben. And von Alvensleben, who committed a huge number of crimes. I've been meaning to do a video on him now, because I even had a meeting about doing this more than 5 years ago, July 2021, and I still haven't done anything except get a couple of pictures of him. I even forgot to go to the place he lived in when I was there. Anyway, so von Gottberg took over the 49th SS Standard in Braunschweig, and possibly as a result of taking over this command, he had a bit of a night out, got himself totally sloshed. He got in someone else's car and he smashed it up. Now, as a result of this accident, his left leg had to be amputated below the knee. But, hey, never mind that. Himmler intervened on Gottberg's behalf. The costs for the medical care, rehabilitation, and the destroyed car were covered by the German taxpayer. So instead of him ending up in prison, as he should have done for this, it was completely, the slate was wiped clean. He didn't even have to pay it himself, and I imagine that his father would have had the financial resources to take care of all the costs involved. Now, he's now invalided, so Himmler decides that von Gottberg could be appointed head of the settlement office in the SS Race and Settlement Main Office. That was Russia in July of 1937. But it seems though Gottberg was no good at doing this, so he was replaced in 1939 by Wilhelm Freiherr von Holzschuher. Around this time, he was then appointed acting head of the Prague Land Office in newly occupied Czechoslovakia, or the Reich Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, as it was known then. Now, von Gottberg now showed himself to be a fraudster. He got involved in all sorts of dodgy transactions, loans to people who he knew, lack of supervision of subordinates, and a lot of money was lost. Indeed, millions of was lost for the Russia, and this was a scandal. And the head of Russia in November of 1939, only a few months into Gottberg's appointment, forced him to resign. He was put under house arrest, and after that he became head of the registration office at the SS main office, 1st of October 1940. I think it should come as no surprise that his proceedings were dropped at the end of April 1942, and Gottberg was rehabilitated. Mind you, it did take quite a long time, and he did have to acknowledge he had made some mistakes and some inappropriate dispositions. But he was credited for having acted with remarkable drive, and that he was ready for responsibility and personal dedication. So he's got this protection, but now he's going to have to pay for it. And he was to pay for it by being sent to occupied Soviet Union. And he became the police leader, the SS and police leader for the White Ruthenia. And there he had to prove his SS leadership ability. In a way, this is somewhat similar to Dirlewanger. Well, of course, Dirlewanger was an out-and-out criminal. Whereas von Gottberg, I'm not suggesting he wasn't a criminal, but so far what he did was limited to fraud. Anyway, so it's been sent here to deal with these partisans, which occupied huge areas. Here, what von Gottberg did is he attacked one village after another. This, what he was called suspected partisan bases. And his unit was called Kampfgruppe von Gottberg. On the 14th of March 1943, he became the representative of the higher SS and police leader for Central Russia, that is Erich von den Bach-Zelewski. And I have done, actually, 2 days ago, I did a video on the meaning of this word plenipotentiary in German, because I can see something very sinister about the way it's used, but I won't go into that right now. So, meanwhile, 22nd September 1943, Belarusian General Commissioner for Belarus, Wilhelm Kuba, was killed by a bomb in Minsk. I think he thought it was an exploding hot water bottle, and 5 days later von Gottberg had to safeguard his affairs. And who better to safeguard your affairs than a non-convicted fraudster? I almost said convicted then, didn't I? Huge areas had to be evacuated. Von Gottberg, he stated in August, 1st of August 1943, in the evacuated area, people will be fair game in the future. Meaning to say, if there were zones which were declared to be evacuated, they might even inform the population, and anybody found there was to be killed. So, his order, 7th December 1942, every bandit, Jew, gypsy is to be regarded as an enemy. There were a number of these clearance operations, and with huge numbers ending up being dead and very little being found in the form of weaponry. So the Kampfgruppe von Gottberg murdered with Sonderkommando Dirlewanger and the Kaminsky Brigade. All of this coordinated by Bach-Zelewski. And just to give you one example, Operation Harvest Festival 1, 18th to 26th of January 1943, 805 people killed, 1,165 specially treated, specially handled, that means to say murdered, own losses 6 dead, 17 wounded, and that was followed Harvest Festival 2, so they had a day off and then they started again on the 20th of January to 9th of February, 2,325 dead, own losses 5 dead, 38 wounded. And this is really, really typical. Operation Hermann, for example, killed 4,000 people. One thing about Wilhelm Kuber was that he attempted to use the locals to set up a sort of Belarusian semi-autonomous government or something along those lines. Gottberg didn't believe in anything like that. He wasn't allowed any autonomy whatsoever. Nonetheless, he was forced on the 21st December 1943 to set up a White Ruthenian Central Council, and this was to be a sort of a puppet state of the occupiers. And I think he did this really in order to recruit people to something which was called the White Ruthenian Home Guard, an association of Belarusian soldiers which was to be used to fight against the partisans. He was appointed higher SS and police leader for Central Russian White Ruthenia on the 21st of June 1944, and this was once more a case of really bad timing, because the next day was the launch of Operation Bagration, 3 years after the invasion of the Soviet Union, and the Soviets retaliated with this attack on Army Group Center. It wasn't expected, because an attack was expected in what had been southeastern Poland, which was closer to Germany, and nonetheless they attacked in this area, marshy area, and it was a major defeat, hasty retreat. Not even that, it was total. When you read the accounts of what happened in Operation Bagration, how the Germans were forced out, it's pretty horrendous, really, though, for some of the Wehrmacht troops. As far as Gottberg was concerned, he, of course, he was one of the first out, as was Dirlewanger, but it didn't stop them, though, stopping off in Borisov and in other places to murder some of the locals. And von Gottberg absolutely refused to be placed under the military command of the Wehrmacht. Despite what was happening at the time, he had to continue his mission of killing as many people as possible. Now, von Gottberg was intended to be the head of a new fight against gang warfare in France, because by this time the large parts of France were occupied by the Maquis, particularly following the Allied landings in Normandy. But that wasn't possible because the Americans and British advanced and Canadians advanced so quickly. So from the 7th of August 1944 to the 18th of October 1944, von Gottberg was put in charge of the 12th SS Army Corps. Now, with his achievements, let's say, his experience in terror, Himmler put him in charge of monitoring the German railway network, looking for deserting soldiers, and Joseph Goebbels also entrusted him with the remobilization of soldiers who'd already been discharged from the Wehrmacht. Now, let's face it, if in 1945 you were one of those who had been discharged from the Wehrmacht, you probably weren't in particularly good condition of going back into the army, as indeed von Gottberg wouldn't have been, as he only had 1.5 legs. War was over. Von Gottberg realized it, and he decided, like many, to go north to Flensburg. I suspect, I can't prove this, I don't know, but I suspect, based on the behavior of other people, he did this in coordination with Himmler. I suspect. I don't know. Anyway, he was taken prisoner when the Flensburg government was stopped by the British, and he was held in a place called Lutzhoft, which isn't so far from Flensburg, and there he committed suicide on the 31st of May 1945. Now, okay, so thanks so much for listening. This video actually has become much longer than I intended. So the von Gottberg, I do think is an interesting character to try and understand. There are some major differences, though, between him and others. Bear in mind, he was born into privilege. It was the landowners that allowed Hitler to come to power, but they didn't usually then do the dirty work. But anyway, I started this off as a complaint about YouTube censoring one of my videos, and I've now gone into a much longer account of what the original censored video was about. So for the moment, thanks for watching. Bye for now.